Anybody remember this guy here?
He's respectful to the public, and he's a good kid, and he's not a professional athlete. If you want to go after an athlete, one of my athletes, you go after one that doesn't do the right things. You don't downgrade him because he does everything right and may not play as well on Saturday, and you let us make that decision. That's why I don't read the newspaper, because it's garbage, and the editor that let it come out is garbage. Where are we at in society today? Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm not a kid. Write something about me or our coach.
Remember that? The player coach? The guy that stood up for his kids? Nowadays, that same coach, Mike Gundy, is blaming the transfer portal, the NIL, and those same players he was taking up for 15 years ago for everything that ails Oklahoma State football. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, you're definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Remember this guy, Mike Gundy, the players coach, the, protector of his program, the does more with less guy than anybody in college football. Yeah, things are amiss in Okie Light land lately, gotta say. And I remember these days. I remember the days that Gundy was this dude, and it was a kind of a breath of fresh air for even people in the media, I think, This was, of course, 2008 when this happened, 15 years ago. But just a couple of days ago.
Well, like Caleb just felt like he got beat out, so he left. But that's his choice. You're going to have different things. I mentioned this to the portal. I think now everybody's coming around to the portal, realizing the portal is there for a variety of reasons. Players can get more money in the NIL. They can be a player that's late in their career and just says, I want to do something different. I want to go somewhere new. Or a guy says, I'm not going to be a starter. I want to go be a starter. So, as of now, we have one guy, which would be Caleb, and he didn't feel like he was going to start here and that he was going to lose his job, and so he wanted to go somewhere else.
He wanted to go somewhere else. He was talking about Caleb Etienne here. The latest transfer out of his program after the 2022 season. The transfer portal has given to Oklahoma State since the start of the year, but it's certainly taken away. The latest was left tackle Caleb Etienne, who started 13 games last season, the one of just two players to do that for Oklahoma State. And for the reasons, obviously, he's saying he felt like he got beat out. notice that he didn't say he did get beat out for the job. And at 6'5" and 300 and or 6'7" and 300 plus pounds, how do you? If you're not saying that, my guess is that he was going to probably start there, just like Spencer Sanders would have started, just like Mason Cobb would have started, just like Trace Ford, if healthy, would have started. Dominic Richardson. There's a list, a bevy of players that have walked out the door, and not once this offseason has Gundy taken any responsibility for it. Even when it came out that supposedly there was abusive practices going on within the coaching staff as far as verbal abuse and things of that nature. This comes at a time when, Spencer Sanders spent a lot of time quarterback in history. He goes on here, and we'll see here in just a second. Let me go ahead and show this.
I'm not a big fan of the portal in the spring because it's extremely difficult to replace roster numbers. But I don't make the rules and standards, I just adjust to them as they go.
Is the most important thing in that area making this the best place you can for the guys you know that fit you the best? I mean, that's kind of the equation.
Well, yes, but players that were here that have gone in the portal that were a great fit here, but they met one of those three categories.
Right.
What you have is Gundy saying that there's three reasons why players are leaving the program in mass exodus. Number one, obviously being that, they could be veteran players that just want to change the scenery, or you get the ones similar to Caleb Etienne, who felt like he lost his position, and so he left because he wants to be a starter, or they're going because of NIL, more money at another school. As we talked about on the live stream the other night, you've got a lot of insulation there in Stillwater. You've got people like Robert Allen, who is a sideline reporter there in Stillwater for Oklahoma State, that will sit and take up for everything that happened during the season. He basically echoes kind of what Gundy's saying, is that this all has to do with the new way of college football.
I take it case by case. On some of the websites, about everywhere I've seen, they've been in the top 5. Now, I think they probably are in the top 10 as well on losses. You lose your leading tackler, Mason Cobb. He's going to USC. I think there was some tampering with Texas A&M. He goes and visits there and finds it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. So he ends up at USC, and then you lose your quarterback.
So essentially what he's talking about there is that, just like Gundy said, all this stuff that's going on, you've got tampering from Texas A&M with Mason Cobb, and then, of course, you lose your quarterback. But none of that has anything to do with Oklahoma State or his program itself. He tells us that there's nothing you can do but deal with it if you're listening to what he's saying, because this is what college football is today. Caleb Etienne, he started all 13 games this past season, but somehow he was under the impression that he wasn't going to be the starter moving forward at left tackle, even though he was one of just 2 Oklahoma State players in 2022 that started all 13 games. Somehow he got the impression that he wasn't going to be able to keep his job, and so there he leaves. Then he goes on and tells you that he's not a big fan of the portal in spring because it just makes it extremely difficult to replace roster numbers. So what I ask you is which category does Mason Cobb fall into? Right? Mason Cobb, who led the team in tackles with 96, 58 solo tackles in his first year as a starter. He's now in Southern California and a part of the beautiful program that Lincoln Riley's building at USC. What about Trace Ford? Defensive lineman who, when healthy, was one of your better players. There's enough potential upside there that after 3 seasons with Oklahoma State, he decided to head down the road to Oklahoma and received Twitter messages from fans wishing that he would have a career-ending injury for the move, and was even trashed by former Oklahoma State basketball player Doug Gottlieb, who is now a Fox Sports radio personality, for the move. What about the leading rusher from the past 2 seasons, Dominic Richardson, who's moving a little further down the road to Waco to play at Baylor, which is a school that, well, it has a true sophomore that looks to be the number 1 running back for the Bears that will likely play in front of him. Why would Dominic Richardson leave? Which category does he fall into? What about Stephon Johnson, wide receiver? As a freshman, he only had 17 receptions, 293 yards, 17 yards per catch, and had a couple of touchdowns. But he flashed big play potential in the Pokes Bowl game, lost to Wisconsin, with an 84-yard touchdown catch. He figured to be in your plans moving forward. So which category does he fall in as a true sophomore? I mean, where does now Ole Miss starting quarterback Spencer Sanders, who you heard Robert Allen referring to, he later goes on to say he's a little different situation with him. But where does Spencer Sanders fit in? Which oversimplified trio of categories that Gundy gave us is the reason for his departure? Early in the season, during an interview with Joel Klatt on Fox Sports, Gundy called him the greatest quarterback in the history of Oklahoma State. Better than even himself. Why is it that he left? Why? You know, Allen chastised Spencer Sanders for reportedly sitting down with Gundy, telling him he thought he was going to test out the transfer portal after the last regular season game before the bowl. Gundy and him agreed that he would continue with practice and play in the bowl game against Wisconsin, finish up the season. Even after he was told that he was going to try out the portal. Well, he ends up not showing up for bowl practices. Apparently calls and says that he's going to go ahead and move on. Then, after 9 practices, attempts to rejoin the team. Gundy famously chose to stand on his laurels once again. Proudly refused Sanders' request to return. Then watched as his Cowboys did what they did all season without Sanders and got completely outmanned, outplayed by a Wisconsin team that had fired its coach like 5 or 6 games into the season. Now, of course, Cody Stovall of Locked On Oklahoma State will tell you that Spencer Sanders was completely mismanaged all season with his injuries. It was very clear that when he wasn't in the game, Oklahoma State had very little chance. I would tell you that I believe that this is pretty simple in that regardless of how many people are insulating you and telling you that it's not your fault, taking up for this coaching staff and blaming everything on something else. There's quite simply a problem in the program. And Coach Gundy can continue to say things like, it's so much different than it used to be. Before, it was, in 2008, Coach Gundy was banging on tables and screaming at reporters for attacking his kids, his players. Come at me, I'm 40. I'm a man. Now it's the NIL's fault, or it's the transfer portal's fault. The kid's fault for wanting more money and leaving for NIL deals. Or veteran players like Spencer Sanders just wanting a change of scenery. A change of scenery? When you've been calling him the number one quarterback in OSU history all season? That just doesn't sound right. And then your starting left tackle, who's 6'7", 350 pounds, and was one of two players on the team to start all 13 games last season, believes that he lost his starting position, so he left? You didn't come out and say that he lost his starting position. You said he believes that he can't hold on to his job. So he left to a new conference rival, BYU, where he's clearly going to start. A number one running back who went down the road to Waco to play behind a true sophomore that was one of the league leaders in the Big 12 in rushing a year ago. Starting job here, I want to be a backup? What? Mason Cobb, leading tackler on your team, decides to go to USC? Maybe that is an NIL deal. Maybe that's a tampering deal. It's possible. It is Lincoln Riley we're talking about. But why would he leave there? Why would a receiver that caught an 85-yard touchdown in your bowl game and figures to be a bigger part of what's going on in the offense next season because of the fact that you had a lot of defections from the receiver position? Why would he leave to go to another in-conference rival in Houston? And why would your starting quarterback of 4 years want to change his scenery when you love on him like that? None of this makes sense. And in truth, there's 20 players that either started on last season's team or had significant playing time that are no longer a part of this program today, moving forward. You obviously were admitting in the tape we just showed that there's some problems, that you're concerned about it. It's just not that you're concerned about the way you do things or your staff does things. Meanwhile, there have been allegations from parents of players in the program about verbal abuse coming from assistant coaches. There's been rumblings all around the program about players being sick of the lackadaisical manner that's placed on winning and losing. You can blame the NIL if you want. You can blame people not wanting to compete for their job or just wanting a change of scenery, but that's blaming kids when that's really not what you've ever done if you're Coach Gundy. So that just goes to show that what the naysayers are saying is probably closer to the truth than what all the folks that are sticking up for Mike Gundy are saying, which is it's the fault of these players. There's no loyalty there. They're bad kids. If they're bad kids because of what's going on in that program. They're kids that he chose to bring into his program and that he tells you were the right fit for the program, but they fell into one of those three little categories that he talked about. None of that makes sense. The only explanation that you can possibly come to is that this guy has lost his touch. Whatever touch he had, he's lost it. For that many players to walk out the door, there's no other explanation. All coaches lose their touch at some point. The game passes them all by. Even the best. Not that I think Mike Gundy's the best one. Nevertheless, there's a big difference between Mike Gundy circa 2008 and Mike Gundy circa 2023. And the main one, all you got to do is look at those two clips and you can see them. Folks, let me know what you think in the comments. And I'm fine with whatever it is that you say. I suspect that this message isn't going to go over real well with a lot of folks within the Oklahoma State community. I get it. But I'm always going to err on the side of athletes before coaches that are beating millions of dollars to win and lose and therefore don't want to lose their job. I think that he's making excuses. I know that he's making excuses, and I think that it's time for everybody to pay attention to that. That's just me. But let me know what you think in the comments. Please make sure that you do hit that like button. That's a free way to make sure that you continue to get content from us week after week. You can always support the show with tips. Buy us a drink, buy us a nice coffee, dinner, whatever, through our super chat button, or you can go on Venmo or CASHAPP and you can buy Amazing Pod merchandise right above me at the address right there. We've got some cool new designs that you should probably check out. Also, if you just want licensed gear from your favorite team, go to our Fanatics partner link. It's on the left bottom part of your screen there. You get up to 65% off everything in the store every time you buy. We get a small commission for your purchases. It's a win-win. But thanks a lot for everybody coming in. We will see you on the next one. Hey, you guys all know the drill, right? Say it with me. Smash that red subscriber button. Like our videos. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Hey, we even have Amazing Pod merchandise right here in our store. Hey, while you're here, don't forget to check out all these other amazing channels and subscribe to them too.